Shalom. You are welcome to another story segment with His Majesty. Please subscribe to my channel, like, comment, and share. Let's get back to the story. They say everything has a price. Jasmine Matthews was about to prove that theory wrong. And billionaire Alexander Cole, he was about to meet the only thing his money couldn't buy her. Detroit, 6 a.m. While most of the city slept, Jasmine Matthews was already awake, because when you're trying to save your grandmother's legacy with 3 part-time jobs and a dream, sleep becomes a luxury you can't afford. The Crown Theater had stood on East Grand Boulevard for 90 years. Gilded balconies, hand-painted ceiling murals, red velvet seats that had hosted everyone from Ella Fitzgerald to Motown legends. Now, peeling paint, broken windows, and a restoration budget held together with hope and stubbornness. Jasmine stood in the center of the empty auditorium, dust motes dancing in the morning light streaming through cracked windows. Her phone buzzed. Another supplier raising their prices. She closed her eyes. 2 weeks, Grandma, she whispered to herself. Just give me 2 more weeks. But 2 weeks was exactly what she didn't have. Because at that exact moment, 15 blocks away in a glass tower that looked down on the city like a steel god, Alexander Cole was reviewing his latest acquisition. Alexander Cole didn't believe in sentiment. Numbers didn't lie. Markets didn't have feelings. At 36, he'd built an empire by understanding one simple truth. Everything had a price point where emotion became irrelevant. The Detroit Revitalization Project was his biggest yet. 12 city blocks transformed into luxury condos, artisan restaurants, boutique hotels. $800 million. Every property owner had sold, except one. His assistant, Claire, set a file on his desk. The Crown Theater. Owner refuses to meet. Refuses to negotiate. I've tried everything. Alexander looked up from his laptop. Everyone negotiates. We're just not offering enough. We offered $3 million for a property assessed at $400,000. He leaned back in his chair, fingers steepled. Then we're missing something. Find out what she actually wants. What Jasmine Matthews wanted walked through her theater door that afternoon wearing a $5,000 suit and an expression that said he'd never heard the word no in his life. We're closed, Jasmine said, not looking up from her paint samples. Miss Matthews? Alexander Cole. I'd like to discuss. I know who you are, and I know why you're here. The answer's no. You haven't heard my offer. Jasmine finally turned, paint-stained hands on her hips. Let me guess. You'll offer me money, a lot of money. And I'm supposed to be grateful that you're willing to overpay for my grandmother's theater so you can tear it down and build another soulless luxury development. I don't build soulless developments. No, you build profitable ones. There's a difference. Alexander Cole was used to admiration, fear, or greed. Jasmine Matthews looked at him like he was gum on her shoe. $4 million. Final offer. Not for sale. $5 million. Cash. You could open 10 theaters with that money, but none of them would be this one. She stepped closer, and he caught the scent of turpentine and coffee. Mr. Cole, I'm sure you're used to people jumping at whatever number you throw around, but this theater? It's where my grandmother met my grandfather, where my mother had her first dance recital, where I decided I wanted to spend my life preserving beautiful things instead of destroying them for profit. So no, not for $5 million, not for 10. Find another property to demolish. I don't demolish. I develop. Potato, potato. Doors behind you. Alexander Cole left the Crown Theater that day with something he hadn't felt in years, curiosity. Because Jasmine Matthews had looked at him like he was ordinary. And nothing in Alexander Cole's carefully constructed life was ordinary. Over the next week, Alexander did what he always did when he didn't understand something: research. He learned that Jasmine worked 3 jobs: barista at sunrise, art conservator in the afternoons, bartender on weekends. Every penny went to the crown. He learned she'd turned down a prestigious position at the Met to stay in Detroit. He learned her grandmother had died 3 years ago, leaving Jasmine the theater and enough debt to crush most people. He learned she hadn't taken a day off in 18 months. And he learned something else, something that made his jaw tighten. His own development was strangling her. Every property he'd bought increased the block's property taxes. Suppliers were charging her triple because they assumed the area was going upscale. Her permits were mysteriously delayed because city officials thought the theater would eventually sell to him anyway. He was destroying her dream without even trying. Alexander sat in his office at midnight, Jasmine's file open on his desk. Claire knocked softly. Still here. The Crown Theater. What if we built around it? Claire blinked. Sir, the development. What if we incorporated it instead of replacing it? That would require complete redesign. Cost us 6 months and... I didn't ask about cost. I asked if it was possible. Claire paused, studying her boss's face. It's possible. But, Alexander, you never compromise on projects. Maybe I should start. Jasmine didn't sleep much anymore. Tonight she was on the theater roof, spray paint in hand, covering graffiti that appeared faster than she could erase it. You're trespassing. Jasmine didn't startle at the voice behind her. It's my building. The roof is technically part of my property's airspace, Alexander said, stepping out of the shadows. Then sue me. I'm broke anyway. You get nothing but satisfaction. Alexander moved closer, looking at her work. She wasn't just covering graffiti. She was painting a mural. A phoenix rising from flames. You're good. Is that surprise I hear? The broke theater girl has actual talent. That's not what I meant. Then what did you mean? Alexander was quiet for a moment, watching the way she moved her hand, confident and precise. I meant you're wasting your talent working 3 jobs when you could sell, take the money, and actually create art full time. This is creating art. Restoration is creation. Taking something broken and making it beautiful again, that's art. But you wouldn't understand that. Why not? Because you destroy things for a living. I transform them. Into what? Expensive apartments where people live alone in luxury. Restaurants where a salad costs $40. You don't transform neighborhoods, Mr. Cole. You replace them. You erase the people who actually built the community and replace them with people who can afford your vision. The words hit harder than they should have. Alexander sat down on the roof's edge, legs dangling. You're right. Jasmine turned, surprised. What? You're right. I've been doing this for 10 years, and not once have I thought about who I was erasing. I thought I was improving things. Maybe you were. For some people. Just not for the people who were already there. How do you do both? Improve without erasing. Jasmine sat down beside him, spray paint can still in hand. You ask people what they need instead of telling them what you think they should want. The conversation stretched into hours. The city lights twinkled below them. Somewhere around 2 a.m., Jasmine found herself laughing at Alexander's story about his first failed development, a luxury dog spa that went bankrupt in 3 months. A dog spa? I was 23 and convinced I knew everything. The market disagreed. What changed? I stopped building what I wanted and started building what worked. And you haven't built what you wanted since. Alexander looked at her, really looked at her, paint-stained and exhausted and somehow the most alive person he'd met in years. No, he said quietly. I haven't. Jasmine woke up the next morning to her phone ringing. Her main investor, the one funding 30% of the renovation. Jasmine, I am sorry. I have to pull out. She sat up in bed, heart pounding. What? Why? Opening is in 10 days. Someone's been spreading information about your financial situation. Questions about whether you can actually complete the project. My board won't take the risk. 3 more calls, 3 more investors pulling out. By noon, Jasmine's funding had evaporated. She stood in the empty theater, looking at the half-finished stage, the newly restored balcony, the chandelier that had taken 6 weeks to repair. Her vision blurred with tears she refused to let fall. Her phone rang. Alexander Cole. She answered with fury in her voice. Was it you? Was what me? Don't play stupid. My investors just pulled out. Someone leaked my financial information. Someone who'd benefit from me failing. Jasmine, I swear I didn't. Save it. I actually started to believe you were different. That maybe you cared about something other than winning. But this is just another acquisition strategy. Isn't it? Sabotage me, wait for me to go bankrupt, buy the property for pennies on the dollar. That's not. Goodbye, Mr. Cole. When you tear down this theater, I hope you choke on the profit. She hung up. Alexander immediately called Claire. Find out who leaked Jasmine Matthews' financial information. Now, the answer came within an hour, and it made Alexander's blood run cold. His brother Marcus, head of acquisitions, acting on what he thought were Alexander's unspoken wishes. Alexander stood in his office, watching the Detroit skyline as the sun set. He'd spent his entire adult life building an empire, making the hard choices, winning at any cost. But looking at his reflection in the glass, he realized he'd become exactly what Jasmine accused him of being, a man who destroyed beautiful things because he'd forgotten how to create them. His phone showed 17 missed calls from Marcus. Explanations, justifications, excuses. Alexander grabbed his keys. Some things couldn't be fixed with a phone call. The question was, could they be fixed at all? Or had Alexander Cole finally met the one thing his money, power, and influence couldn't repair? Alexander didn't knock. He used his key card to access Marcus's penthouse at 11 p.m., fury radiating off him like heat. Marcus looked up from his laptop, wine glass in hand. Alex, I was just about to call you. The Matthews property should be available within. You leaked her financial information. Marcus's smile faltered. I was helping. Once she goes bankrupt, we can... I told you 3 weeks ago to stop pursuing her. His eyes were bloodshot. He felt a chill from his voice. You said that, but I know how you operate. You always... Alexander's fist hit the desk, so hard the wine glass jumped. I meant what I said. Every word of it. Marcus stood, defensive now. Since when do you care about some struggling theater owner? This is business, Alex. This is what we do. Alex moved closer to him. Eyes still fury no. This is what you do. And you're done. What? You're fired. I want your resignation on my desk by morning. Marcus laughed, but it was hollow. You're firing me? Your own brother? Over some woman you met a month ago. I'm firing you because you acted without authorization and damaged someone He caught his words in his throat. Someone who didn't deserve it. Pack your office. You have until Monday. Alexander turned to leave. She's changed you, Marcus called after him. The old Alex would have thanked me. Alexander paused at the door. Then maybe the old Alex needed to change. Jasmine sat in the Crown's empty auditorium at midnight, surrounded by half-finished dreams. The stage was set. The curtains hung. The chandelier sparkled. Opening night was in 9 days, and she had no funding to finish. No money for the actors she'd promised. No way to pay the orchestra. She'd failed. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Don't give up. Please. Actini. She deleted it. Another text. I know you hate me. But give me 1 hour. Tomorrow. Noon. Crown Theater. If you still hate me after, I'll disappear. Jasmine stared at the message for a long time. Then she typed back 1 hour. Not a minute more. Alex arrived at the Crown at 11:45 a.m. carrying a leather folder and looking like he hadn't slept. Jasmine was on stage, touching up paint on a set piece. "You're early," she said when her eyes fell on him. "I wanted to make sure you didn't change your mind." He climbed onto the stage, and she noticed the dark circles under his eyes. "Thank you for seeing me. Talk." Your hour started at 11:45. Alexander opened the folder. "This is Marcus, my brother, head of my acquisitions team. He leaked your financial information without my knowledge or consent." Jasmine took the papers, scanning them. Email threads, text messages, bank records showing payments to a private investigator. "I fired him last night," Alexander continued, "and I've contacted each of your investors personally. Showed them proof that the leak was corporate sabotage, not legitimate concerns about your project. 3 have agreed to reinvest." Jasmine looked up, surprised. 3. Thompson, Liu, and Castellanos. That's 40% of your original funding. That's not enough, she stuttered. "I need at least 70% to finish." "I know." Alexander pulled out another document. "That's why I'm offering to cover the remaining 30%. No strings, no ownership stack. Anonymous investment through a shell company, so you don't even have to acknowledge it came from me." Jasmine's hands trembled as she held the papers. "Why?" "Because you were right about me in some way. I want to prove I can do something different. I want to prove I can help create something beautiful without owning it." "This is a lot of money, Alexander," she gazed up at him. "It's an investment in something that matters. You taught me the difference." He smirked. Jasmine set the papers down, emotions warring across her face. "I can't accept this." Alexander's face fell, but he nodded. "I understand. I can't accept it as charity." She looked at him directly. "But I can accept it as a partnership. You invest 30%. You get 30% of the profits when we succeed. Standard investor agreement. Legally binding." "Jasmine, I don't want." "I know you don't, but I do. I don't want to be saved, Alexander. I want a partner who believes this theater will succeed." "So do you? Believe it will succeed?" Alexander looked around the theater, at the restored balconies, the hand-painted murals, the stage where Jasmine had poured her heart. "Yes, I believe it will." "Then we have a deal." She extended her hand. He chuckled and shook it, and neither of them let go for several seconds longer than necessary. Alex gazed intently into her eyes, like he's reading her. The next week was chaos. Jasmine worked 16-hour days finishing the sets, coordinating with actors, managing 100 last-minute crises. Alexander showed up every day, not to supervise, but to help. He painted sets. He moved furniture. He made coffee runs at 3 a.m. when the tech crew was installing lights. On one of those late nights, Jasmine found him in the balcony, just sitting alone, looking at the stage. "Can't sleep?" she asked, sitting beside him. "I used to love theater," he said quietly. "When I was a kid, before my father decided I needed to learn business instead of waste time on art. It's not too late to come back to it. I'm 30 and I run a billion-dollar company. So, attend a show. Support the arts. Let yourself feel something besides profit margins." Alexander turned to her. "I've been feeling something besides profit margins since the night I met you on that roof." The air between them shifted, charged with something unspoken. "Alex, I know. We're business partners now. It's inappropriate. I just needed you to know that this." He gestured to the theater. "This isn't about money for me anymore. It stopped being about money the moment you looked at me, like I was worth more than my bank account." Jasmine's breath caught. "You are worth more than your bank account." "Am I?" "Yes. You're worth exactly 1 hour of arguing with me about whether owning a business makes you an artist. You're worth the 3 a.m. coffee runs you think I don't notice. You're worth the way you listen when I talk about restoration techniques, like they're the most interesting thing in the world. That's what you're worth. Alexander smiled, soft and genuine. That might be the nicest thing anyone's ever said to me. Then you've been talking to the wrong people. They sat in comfortable silence, shoulders touching, watching the empty stage that would soon be full of life. Opening night arrived with perfect spring weather and a line around the block. Jasmine stood backstage in a simple black dress, hands shaking as she checked and rechecked the program for the 100th time. You're going to be amazing, Alexander said, appearing beside her in a tuxedo that made her heart skip. What if no one comes? Jasmine, there are 200 people in that audience. The show is sold out. What if they hate it? Impossible. He took her hands, steadying them. You brought this place back from the dead. You made something beautiful when everyone told you to give up. Whatever happens tonight, you've already won. The stage manager called places. Alexander squeezed her hands once more. Go. Create something beautiful. The show was magic. A revival of A Raisin in the Sun, performed by local Detroit actors with raw talent and fierce passion. The audience laughed, cried, and gave a standing ovation that lasted 5 minutes. Jasmine stood in the wings, tears streaming down her face as the cast took their bows. The Crown Theater lived again. At the after-party, investors and donors crowded around her, praising the production, discussing future shows. Jasmine smiled and thanked them, but her eyes kept searching the room. She found Alex on the balcony again, this time looking out over the city lights. Hiding from the crowds, she smirked, coming closer. He turned, smiling, giving you space to celebrate. This is your night. It's our night. None of this happens without you. You would have found another way. You always do. Jasmine stepped closer. Maybe. But I'm glad I didn't have to. I'm glad you showed up that day. I'm glad you kept showing up. Even when I was horrible to you. You weren't horrible. You were honest. I needed that. Alexander Cole, billionaire real estate developer who needed someone to yell at him about his life choices? Something like that. He laughed, then grew serious. I have something for you. He pulled out another folder. Jasmine groaned. More paperwork? On opening night? Just look. She opened it. Inside were architectural plans. Detailed, professional plans showing the Crown Theater integrated into Alexander's development. The theater remained intact, fully funded for preservation. Around it, affordable housing mixed with commercial space. Community centers. Public art installations. A development built around the neighborhood, instead of over it. What is this? It's the new plan. For the block. I've been working with community leaders, the original residents, local businesses. We're building something that works for everyone, not just people with money. It'll take longer, cost more, profit less, but it's what this neighborhood needs. Jasmine stared at the plans, tears welling again. You did this. You inspired it. You showed me what it means to create instead of just acquire. I wanted to prove I was listening. Alex, this is incredible. So are you. The words hung between them, simple and true. Jasmine set the plans aside. I need you to understand something, Alex. Okay, when you first walked into my theater, I thought you were everything wrong with the world. Arrogant, cold, destructive. Accurate assessment. Let me finish. She hits him lightly on the chest. That touch struck something in Alex. Then I got to know you. And I realized you weren't cold. You were lonely. You weren't destructive. You'd just forgotten how to create. You weren't arrogant. You just didn't know anyone was willing to see past the money to the person underneath. Alexander's jaw tightened with emotion. I don't hate you, Alex. I haven't hated you for weeks. Actually, she stuttered. Jasmine, you don't have to. I couldn't just control being attracted to you. I kept fighting it, but I'm falling in love with you. She said it simply, fearlessly. And I need you to know that before you say anything else. Before you tell me all the reasons why this is complicated or inappropriate or bad timing, I need you to know that when I look at you, I don't see a billionaire. I see a man who sat on a roof with me until 3 a.m. talking about art. A man who fired his own brother to protect me. A man who painted sets in $1,000 suit because he wanted to help. That's who I'm falling in love with. Alexander stared at her, and for a moment she thought she'd miscalculated everything. Then he smiled, a real smile, the kind that reached his eyes and transformed his whole face. I fired Marcus in a $10,000 suit, actually, but I appreciate the sentiment. Jasmine laughed through her tears. You're impossible. I'm completely in love with you, Jasmine. He stepped closer, cupping her face gently. I've been in love with you since you told me to leave your theater. Since you looked at me like I was ordinary and made me want to be extraordinary. Since you showed me that the most valuable things in life can't be bought or sold or acquired. They have to be earned. I don't know what I want to build yet, but I know I want to build it with you. He stared deeply into her eyes, cupped her chin and kissed her. It was soft and sure, while the city sparkled below and the Crown Theater blazed with light behind them. Two people from different worlds, building something together. When their lips parted, Jasmine hugged him tightly, resting her forehead against his chest, like her safest place. 6 months later, the Crown Theater's winter production, a modern adaptation of Romeo and Juliet, played to another sold-out crowd. In the newly renovated box seats, Jasmine and Alexander sat side by side, his arm around her shoulders, her head resting against his chest. On stage, the actors proclaimed that love transcends barriers, defies logic, and transforms everything it touches. Jasmine whispered, "Think they're right? About love transforming things." Alexander kissed the top of her head. "I think love taught me the difference between acquiring something and earning it, between owning something and cherishing it, between building a fortune and building a life. That's very poetic for a businessman." She smirked. "I've been spending a lot of time in theaters. It's rubbing off on me." "Good. You needed some culture. And you needed someone to remind you that accepting help isn't weakness, it's wisdom." Jasmine tilted her face up to kiss him. "You're the best." Below them, the play continued. Around them, the Crown Theater thrived, preserved, protected, and full of life. Outside, the neighborhood flourished, a development built on respect rather than erasure. And in the box seats, two people who'd started as adversaries sat together, building something neither money nor determination alone could have created: a partnership, a love story, a future. Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to subscribe, like, comment, and share. See you in the next segment. Shalom.